Welcome to another edition of Dungeons and Social Distancing with Nerdarchy.
Today we continue our adventure through the Mythic Odysseys of Theros with magic items and artifacts.
Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
If you want to keep those D&D videos flowing in your YouTube feed like magic, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button.
But if you want to conjure Nerdarchy specifically, make sure you attune to that notification bell.
You know, Ted, we're going to be talking about Mythic Odysseys of Theros today and magic items. You want to know where you usually find the best magic items?
I don't know, Dave. Where?
In a dungeon. And you know what you're going to need if you want to fully flush out those dungeons?
Could it possibly be Dungeon Fog?
You are going to want to use Dungeon Fog, the sponsor for this video. They have free versions of Dungeon Fog. They have different licenses you can sign up for. It is definitely worth checking out. This mapping tool is amazing. It makes beautiful, gorgeous maps. It makes me feel like I'm a kid again, drawing on graph paper, only they look so much prettier and better than they ever did when I used to draw them by hand. And again, you don't have to store them all over the place. You don't have to get smudges of ink and a graphite on you because it's all digital.
That's right, but that's not all. If you're not, into the, let me super design maps from the nitty gritty detail, there is already a whole ton of already made maps by themselves and other users that you're going to be able to gain access to. So you have to check out Dungeon Fog. There's so many great ways to use it. Highly recommend it. The link is going to be down in the description below.
So we're going to kind of do like a quick overview of the magic items section, artifacts in Mythic Odysseys of Theros, or Moot for short, just because it's a really long title. But there's some really cool things, and one of the very first things they kind of get into is gifts of the gods for your magic items, which really don't necessarily have to do with magic items specifically.
I really love this section, and I'm actually going to read a part of it because I think that it speaks that much. So it says, as a DM, feel free to make ordinary magic items feel like they have significant history and purpose. Even a +1 spear might have been carried by a company of hoplite veterans that went missing during their quest to reach the edge of the world. Wands might be crafted from legendary sources, while potions might bear the seals of famed alchemists or include signature reagents, like a Pegasus feather and a potion of flying. The Remarkable Origins table listed below is going to show you different ways that you can enhance these quote-unquote regular magic items to make them feel not like a regular magic item.
It also references the tables in Chapter 7 of the Dungeon Master's Guide for further inspiration to make even mundane magic items a little bit more unique. I've used them in my own game. I love those little quirks that you can do where it's just maybe an oddity to the appearance of the item, or it just, offers something like, oh, when you wear or wield this particular magic item, you can also speak another language. So there's like some cool, flavorful things like that to distinguish the magic items that you're giving out from just, the mundane ones in the DMG.
So when you do this kind of stuff, it has the ability to impact the history of the world. Small things in a piece of treasure might actually encourage characters to explore that story further, get into the rich lore that you're laying the foundation for. Perhaps that you didn't write a story of why, wielding this sword allows you to speak Draconic, or why carrying this shield allows you to understand Celestial. But as the player begins to, evolve and dig deeper into this story, you can write it and, put those pieces together. And through doing, they're exploring the campaign world. They're getting into the exploration pillar. And I highly recommend it. I highly encourage that kind of stuff.
All right, so as we dive into the magic items, we're going to get new magic items for it, and we're going to get 8 of them.
All right, so there is going to be the Flying Chariot, the Helm of the Gods, the Molten Bronze Skin, the Potion of Aqueous Form, the Pyzix of Pandemonium.
We have a Siren Song Lear, the Sling Bullets of Ethermone, 2 Bird Sling. So there's 8 new items. They're all really cool, and they do a variety of things. I think we're just going to pick out, 1 or 2 of them that we want to highlight.
So I've got two that I feel have some significant talking points. Based on the different styles of DMs that I've seen out there. So the first one that I'm bringing up is Helm of the Gods. Wondrous item, requires attunement. It's rare. While wearing this helm, you know whether there is a celestial or fiend within 30 feet of you, as well as where the creature is located, provided it's not behind total cover. Whenever you finish a long rest while wearing the helm, you can pray to one of the gods listed on the Helm of the Gods table and store the listed spell in the helm, replacing any spell it already stored there. The DC for the spell is 13. Has 3 charges. To cast a spell from the helm, you must expend 1 charge, and the helm regains 1 to 3 charges daily at dawn. If you pray to Atheros, it's protection from evil. Aphera is sanctuary. Erebus is inflict wounds. Heliod is guiding bolt. Aros is heroism. Karamitra is goodberry, and it goes on and on. And there's a list of them there. And the thing that I find is going to be a little bit contentious here is the specific wording of that second paragraph. Whenever you finish a long rest while wearing the helm, you can pray to one of the gods listed on the table and get that spell. So, how many people are going to be sleeping in their helm? It should say, while attuned to this helm, when you finish a long rest, you can do this. The specific wording, I feel there's going to be some very nitpicky GMs who are going to say, "Oh, did you sleep wearing the helm? Oh, you didn't. Sorry, you don't get the change."
Or you don't get the long rest because you have a terrible kink in your neck because you wore a helm when you slept, you moron. Nah, yeah, I guess, but I think at the end of the day, I just be like, all right, you have the helm, you're attuned to it, good enough. It was near you.
Yes, I feel that most GMs are going to do that, and if you're a GM out there who's going to say, well, specifically it says while wearing. So you have to sleep with it on.
I find there's actually something more interesting about this.
All right, what do you got going on there?
When wearing the helm, you can pray to one of the gods listed on the Helm of Gods table and store a listed spell, right? So it doesn't say pray to your god. It just says one of the gods. So essentially you have this list of 15 spells where you're just going to get to prepare one. Which deity do you want to pay homage to this particular day? And that's the spell you're going to get. And also, it makes a lot of sense in this kind of setting because you probably pray to many gods and pay homage to many gods unless you happen to be a cleric. But even if you're a cleric, you still acknowledge the other gods. And these gods have relationships that are built between them. So some good, some bad. But everyone has to acknowledge that the gods have influence in the world. So that's kind of a cool part of it where especially if you want to like role play it a little bit more, because now the gods every day are playing an active role in this particular character's life because they have to pray to them.
When you've got such an item as the Helm of the Gods, I think that should be it should stand out. It is a rare item. It's not something that, you're just going to trip over. So perhaps, adding a little bit extra to the helm is maybe it's a conduit. Maybe when you pray to it, the god literally bestows that spell upon the helm, and that's what's there. Maybe if you actually have a stronger relationship with that deity, you might be able to convince your GM to have a different spell put in. What if it's something stronger than what's there? What if the DC goes up? There are so many ways to customize and play with this helm based on how it's formatted. I think you could have a lot of fun using this helm in your game, depending upon how you're building those relationships. All right, well, I really wanted guiding bolt. I really wanted heroism. So I keep going after this one deity time and time again. Well, what if you take a couple of days off and you're going to other spells? How is that god reacting? Of like, well, why haven't you called, dude? What's going on? Like, you're in a world where that legitimately can happen. And, as these champions, as these characters who are, beyond typical mortal men, because of Theros campaign, you've got those supernatural gifts, which we talked about in an earlier video. Like, these characters are going to stand out, so therefore their prayers are going to come higher up on that, on that messenger list. So I definitely look to that as an example of how things could wind up playing beyond just, the legitimate text of, what's in the book.
I kind of look at it the other way. What if you already have a piety score with a deity, right? What happens if you begin praying to a deity that has a negative relationship with your deity that you're already kind of been interacting with through piety? So there could definitely be something going on there. I don't think it'll matter so much if you were just praying to different gods, but if you actually are connected to a god, then that might be different. Or if you use that particular god and you're always praying to that one, does it affect your piety score maybe? So like these are all things that could definitely come up.
If you're praying to a god that is opposite to what what your deity would normally be doing, that could absolutely influence your piety score. You could have a negative. Your piety score can go down. So your DM might make that call to say, hey, you've been praying to this other god, for benefits through this magic item. Your god's not pleased about that. Please take one off your piety score. And your rank, your piety, if you drop below certain levels, you can actually lose those powers. So you can definitely go in that direction. So that's definitely something to consider.
So we had another item we wanted to talk about, and that was the Molten bronze skin. It actually sparked a little debate amongst our group when we were talking about it. It is armor, either breastplate, half plate, or a plate. It's rare, requires attunement. The magical armor appears as a jug of molten bronze. When you attune to it, the bronze adheres and contours to your skin. The armor can be worn under normal clothes, but it doesn't impede bodily functions. Once you put it on, it can't be removed unless you choose to do so. While wearing the armor, you have resistance to fire damage. You also doesn't impose disadvantage on dexterity stealth checks.
All right, so for those of you who are curious about the debate, it's listed as a magic item of armor, breastplate, half plate, or plate. Can a druid who has proficiency with that particular armor type, can they wear it? That is the question at hand. Bronze is technically a type of metal, and druids have the restriction in the player's handbook that they won't wear metal armor.
But at the same time, I look at it as it's just molding to your skin, right? Over the areas that type of armor would. It's not actually a suit of armor, because if it was, you wouldn't be able to have it underneath your clothing for the most part, right?
Correct. Now, it does not.
I know there are other things like mithril that are so light you can wear them, but I feel like this is different because it's literally a liquid, just that forms to your body. I would probably allow a druid to do it. I know there are other DMs that probably won't. I am curious to say what Jeremy Crawford would say. Sometimes you ask him questions, the same question more than once, and you get different answers anyway.
So I look at this, and the wording in the player's handbook says they won't do it. And, there have been, clarifications and whatnot that, it's like, in earlier editions, they would lose their powers if they would put those things on. They couldn't wild shape. They couldn't cast spells. They were just a normal person with a pile of hit points at that point in time. But here, it doesn't list it that way. So I would honestly look at this item and say, all right, here is a urn full of, molten bronze. Would you, attune to this and pour it over your body, or would you not? And I would literally give it the choice of the player. And if they would choose to do it, I'd have zero problems with it. When I look at this magic item, the first thing that jumps into my mind is I want to play a Minotaur with this, because that would be super cool to be like, I'm a statue. But as far as the druid thing, I don't think it's worth arguing. While it's listed as a armor type for a magic item, I'm not going to say you're wearing armor, because you're not.
It's like a bronze skin. I don't know, just a point of curiosity. Next up, we have artifacts. I believe we're going to get 5 new artifacts. They all happen to be weapons. But before that, you get to Weapons of the Gods Adventures in this section. And in that section, it's just like 6 different things. Steal a god's weapon to lay low one of the god's servants, a creature that can only be harmed by its creator's wrath. Reforge a god's weapon after an incredible feat caused it to shatter.
So, like, these artifacts, you've got all of these cool things. You've got a D6 of options for what you can try to do to acquire one of these things. It's pretty cool. All of these weapons are amazing, as you would expect. They are legitimate artifacts. These are the weapons that typically the gods they themselves are wielding. So as you start going through them, it is utterly crazy, utterly insane. They all have a this cool feature that links to the piety score. You all have this cool thing that there's extra powers if you have a piety score. There's also if you're not a worshiper of this, the item gains one minor detrimental and one major detrimental property is randomly determined from the DMG. So there's definitely fun things that you can play along with of like, well, if I wield it, I am better, but if you wield it, you might get something that sucks.
Did you have a favorite, Ted?
I do. When I look to, the Greek mythos, when I look at, these items, I mean, there's a bow, there's a spear, there's a trident, there's a hammer. I feel like the spear is the most, like, Greek style weapon, the thing that fits the best theme for this kind of thing. So I looked at, Crusaor, the Spear of Heliod. It's a weapon, a spear, artifact. Of course, it requires attunement. Heliod wields this weapon, a spear blessed with the power of the sun. In his hands, it can be pitched from Nyx to any point on Theros. When Heliod lends his weapon to a mortal, it is typically so they can perform some great work in his name or a test of their worthiness. It is a +3 weapon that when you hit with an attack using the spear, the target takes an extra 2d8 radiant damage. If you are a worshipper of Heliod, you gain benefits of 15 temporary hit points if you've got a piety of 3. And then you gain additional random minor or beneficial and major beneficial properties as your piety score goes up. As I said, if you're not a worshiper, you get 2 randomly determined major detrimental properties. The spear sheds bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an additional 30-foot. The light is sunlight, so therefore, like if you're going and fighting in vampires and things that, fear the sun, yeah, this is a good weapon for that. Sun's Retaliation. When you take damage from a creature within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack with the spear against that creature. On a hit, the spear deals damage in normal, and the creature is blinded until the start of its next turn. The property of the spear can't be used again until next dawn. But it also gains spells. The spear has 10 charges. While holding it, you can use an action to expend 1 or more charges to cast one of the following spells. The save DC is 18. Guiding Bolt for 1 charge, Daylight for 3, Sunbeam for 6, and the spear gains 1d6 plus 4 expended charges at dawn. If you wish to destroy the spear, if taken to Erebus's palace in Tizoris and used to sacrifice a champion of Heliod to Erebus, Cursor is either destroyed or fundamentally twisted to Erebus's service.
So yeah, you got a lot of fun things you can put in there, and also it's an artifact. The idea is it's not meant to stay in your game for long. Even in the lore, it's like, here, do this task, prove you're worthy, and then more than likely the deity is going to be like, yeah, now you're going to give that back to me. You're done with it. And we have one for 5 of the gods, and because they all are related to one particular deity. So you could make up another 10 of them, or maybe you can go through your magic cards and figure out which of the other deities would have. I don't think it would be too hard. It would definitely be kind of cool. And even Doug was talking about the idea of having a party that is equipped with these items for like a special quest for this like holy Uber party that has to work together.
Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea. When I read these kind of things, as artifacts should, it should be evocative of stories and how you could use them as quests, or like how you could be a champion. Oh, well, I'm gonna, worship Helios, and, we're given a quest. There is a champion of Erebus out there who has somehow stolen or acquired this spear and is seeking its destruction. So be on the lookout for, Helios champions. Be on the lookout for this spear. Protect them. Get back the spear. These things are littered, with ideas and quests, just as you're reading through them. So definitely thumbs up to all of the artifacts.
Yeah, I would say, you know, this is a great example of how to tie magic items and artifacts specifically to your worlds. And here we're really looking at flavoring them via the gods. So it's a great example whether you're playing in Theros or you're just looking at these elements into your homebrew campaign.
Do you want to learn more about the Mythic Odysseys of Theros? Then you could check out our conversation about the gods of Theros over here.
If you're looking for even more 5e content, take a look at our Patreon where you can find content that's created for DMs and players alike.
That's not all we do. We do weekly live chats for our patrons. We do monthly giveaways that our patrons are automatically entered into, and more.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.